Good afternoon, others online. We are meant to start, but we will just wait for 1 more minute, and then we begin with our seminar. We will start at 13:03. Colleagues, I think we can begin with our seminar today. My name is Kukomaa. I will be directing this webinar today. And our webinar today is by our colleague, Cyriaque Hakizimana, who is a researcher and a PhD candidate here at PLAAS. He's also currently leading the Southern African Regional Hub of the Agricultural Policy Research in Africa, a program which aims to produce new information and insight into different pathways to agricultural commercialization. He is also the coordinator of the Young African Researchers in Agriculture Network. Cyriaque will present for 30 minutes, and then the remaining 30 minutes will be for question and answer. Cyriaque, you can proceed.
Thank you, Kaniso, and thank you, colleagues, for attending this presentation. I'm feeling humbled by the presence of most of you, and I am indeed looking forward for a very fascinating conversation on this particular topic, which is very much close to my mind. Now, let me see why it's not moving. Okay, it's moving now. Yes, many things. Look, I mean, the argument that this particular paper that I'm writing is based on my PhD, chapter 5 of my PhD, and the first empirical chapter of my doctoral thesis. And the kind of argument that I am developing in this paper, because I respect the time, then you let me know. So the particular argument that I am developing in this particular presentation is to say that in the context of what Sandberg, what Jim has termed agricultural commercialization hotspot or settings, where the value is high and the farming is highly profitable for smallholder farming. Second. This is just second. Not this side. Okay. So thank you. Thank you. So I was saying that my apologies for that. I was saying that the argument that I'm trying to make here in this presentation today is that in the context of what somebody has termed agricultural commercialization hotspots, rural settings where the value is high and the farming is highly profitable for small agricultural commercialization, that youth land scarcity is generating more manufactured to achieve and protect the patriarchs' own socio-economic benefit from commercial farming. This is the kind of argument that I'm just trying to develop in this particular presentation. And this particular argument, I am making it in a particular, context. This is the context, the rural context that has experienced land reform many years ago, in around the 1960s in central Kenya, around the Mount Kenya region, and the Timao resettlement scheme, where my study is based, was one of the 260 smallholder schemes that were introduced or started by the Jomo Kenyatta administration back in 1960s, when he was trying to resuscitate the smallholder sector that was wiped out by the British colonial rule. So it has got that whole long history of land distribution that in a way has facilitated or has made possible the emergence of very successful, very robust smallholder commercialization. The two major commodities which are produced in this particular rural setting that I'm focusing on is two major crops. One is the French beans, which are destined for external market, for international market in Europe and the Middle East. And another crop is potato, which is destined for the national markets, big market being Nairobi, Mombasa, and other parts of Kenya. So when you drive or you move through around this particular rural setting that I'm focusing on here, you just see quite a lot of vibrant economic activities, trucks, as you can see on my right hand side, trucks moving in and out of this rural area, taking commodities to different markets, in Kenya. And I used a kind of different method to gather the data that I'm using to make my argument here. I use in the informal interviews, I use focus group interviews and the household survey. It was kind of a combination of methods that I used to recommend that in this particular context. But now I want first to present four key concepts analytical concepts that I'm using to develop my argument, my argument in this particular paper. The first concept that I'm using is Marxist agrarian differentiation that can be traced back to Lenin in the 19th century. And the key argument there, according to Lenin, is that Lenin was trying to explain the emergence of the rise of capitalism in the life of his time, especially in agrarian life of his time, when he argues that rural areas are characterized by a kind of variety of identifiable social classes with distinct in the conflict interest. And rural, from this particular perspective, from this particular Marxist perspective, rural youth are entrenched. Rural youth are entrenched in the families which are socially differentiated. In a way, thinking around young people's access to to land. And in that particular context, the Chernobyl perspective, which is centered around the concept about the peasant household economy in its view, which goes through, a kind of life cycle, and the household extends the asset base and the needs and everything according to the size of that household. As it increases, it started as small, increases and then reduces again. At each stage of that kind of life cycle, the household we accumulate resources, household resources according to what is needed there. So from this particular Chanovian, kind of perspective, then it means that if young people don't have the land, it simply means that there's no problem. It's that young people at that particular stage where they don't supposed to own the land, and the fathers are therefore the key custodians of the resources that will be handed over to them at that particular stage, where they will be ready to start the agrarian families, and so the cycle will start again. So you've got this Marxist kind of perspective, which says that young people don't have land simply or don't have land depending on which families they're coming from, and to Chanovian, who argues that they don't, their demographic dynamics here, they don't have land because they are at that particular stage where they don't supposed to own land in the first place. The resources are kept by their parents, waiting for the right time through marriage, when they'll be able to acquire those resources that they need to start the the household, and the household, the agrarian household cycle continues. And then the third concept that I recall here in constructing my argument is the concept developed by Alexander Manuel Honwana, the weight-hood, who's an anthropologist based at London School of Economics in UK. What Honwana argues is that young people are expected to be, he found in her research across the continent, in her research around the continent, he picked up a particular phenomenon where young people are supposed to be or are expected to be independent from their parents, but are not yet recognized as such. And that can go on for quite extended number of years, and they are kept in what she called attenuated form of adulthood. In other words, not adulthood is not youth, is something in between there. And she found that actually, she argues that, she contends that the majority of young Africans, unfortunately, today find themselves in that kind of situations, which is in between. In a way, this is a kind of shift from Marxist and the Chanovian kind of perspective to say, actually, that is not necessarily now. This is what we see happening here. And the last concept that I wanted to mention here that I'm focusing on is a concept of political scarcity that Ian Schmidt and his colleagues developed or wrote about in the paper in 2019, arguing or in a way augmenting the Malthusian discussions and the new Malthusian discussion about absolute and the relative scarcities, and they add what they call political scarcity, which emphasizes how resources are distributed between different needs and uses, and between different people and the social classes. And what they argue, quite powerful, is that scarcity is actually manufactured to suit particular, interests for those who are deploying those kind of narrative. And the argue that actually those narrative of scarcity are being deployed in the total context of over resources. So this is the four major analytical concepts that form a basis of my theoretical engagement in this particular, argument that I'm developing here. Now, moving straight to my empirical, finding, what the analysis of my cross-sectional survey shows quite, the lack of young people's access to land across all, social classes. You could see that 76% of all young people from the poor household don't have access to land, and the 61% from all young people in the middle class household don't have access to land, and the 63% of all young people from the rich household don't have access to land. Now, I would have expected to have, if indeed the Marxist, Marxist argument that is true, that the young people from rich household are most likely to own land than young people from the poor household. And then I would have expected to see this youth land scarcity being concentrated only in a poor household. But as you could see from this particular table, actually this youth land scarcity cut across the social classes, whether you are rich from rich household or from middle household or from poor household. The reality seems to be that young people don't have or don't own land. Now, my curiosity has been taking me to take a little bit one stage above an article, about just to see whether this kind of land scarcity that I'm picking up from this descriptive table is not actually by chance, random chance that that things are the way they are. I wanted to see whether they are indeed significant, statistically significant. So I learned the regression model in which to see whether the age indeed has a great impact on the access to land, holding constant other important variables that may actually contribute to the, may explain the access to land, including market status, including, the investment, surplus income, the number of children, the relation to the local leaders, and so all those kind of variables that may indeed influence land access. But holding everything, constant, I found a positive relationship between age and access to land, and in a way, what the logistics, what the regression analysis tells me is that the younger you are, the less likely you are to own or to have access to land. Therefore, the kind of table, the kind of situation that we have in this previous table. Now, because of time, I want to move very quickly. But then, how do we explain that? How do we explain that? This kind of scarcity that seems to be evident from this empirical material here. And here, I want to dive deeper into qualitative information, qualitative data, to actually go to some generational dynamics that are deeply rooted in interlinked socioeconomic and cultural factors, which I think might actually, involve into this, in explaining this kind of situation that we're having here. The first point I want to make here is a term that quite, come very widely used in the qualitative interview across different generations, either by the young people and by the parents. This term that they use in Kiswahili, Kukomaa akili. The direct translation in English might be matured mind. And this is the parents who argue that if there is a grown person and he is married, then he can be given the land. At this stage, he has a matured mind and a mind of being able to take the land. He is depending on himself, so we can give him the land. And then in the male youth focus group, in other ways here, this parents or the parents, the general pattern that comes from the information from the parents was this connection between having a matured mind with getting married. That is how they define, how they see the meaning of being mature enough to be given to be acquired with the organic resources. For young people, though, they've got a different understanding. They use the same term, or mature mind, but they've got a kind of different understanding, or they use it in different way from their parents. This is what transpired from the interviews in the male focus group interviews. For those parents who have land, they should give their children land when they turn 18 years of age, because at that stage, their children are mature enough to get involved in farming production as independent producers. After the young people have been circumcised, they become adults. They are no longer children. The circumcised young people are adult person in their own right, and therefore they're supposed to be given what is due to them. And in the female youth focus group, because I conducted them separately, this is what they responded. A child is someone who has not yet been circumcised. When a male young person is circumcised, he becomes another. Traditionally, child its status was between birth and the circumcision. So there's that kind of the significance of this generational difference in terms of what they constitute a Kukomaa akili or mature mind is that young people, their parents have a different understanding with regard to when and under what circumstances the intergenerational transfer of organic resources should occur. While young people believe that they should be allocated the land when they are still young, 18 years of age, the parents still insist that they should wait until they get married, which might or might not happen even in the current trend of disintegration of traditional households and the rapid rise of single parenthood, which has its own dynamics that it has been picked up by different scholarly work recently. This may lead to the prolongation of what this is when then the concept that Honwana developed about workforce for young people, as the parents don't recognize them as mature before they get married, even if young people consider themselves as adults because they have successfully gone through all this kind of the ritual or the circumcision that they see as important for them to be mature enough to be given what is due to them, that is be given the resources. So, in a way, the patriarchs explain the animate view of both genders as responsible and stable and prone to make and work decisions in life. And young people are therefore coerced by their parents to stay in that kind of social condition that Nana was describing before they can get access to land. Although the patriarchs claim that they are acting in good faith by refusing to allocate land to animate young people and that they are protecting their children who have not yet developed a mature mind, that would enable them to protect use of their father resources, then people don't necessarily see it that way. The emphasis on circumcision, the emphasis on circumcision, which is an age-bound ritual ceremony for democratic transition, implies the disapproval of being kept in a prolonged social attenuated form of adulthood that Honwana is talking about. When the young people in the current situation of what constitutes Kukomaa akili or mature mind differ, the later takes precedence over the form. In other words, in this particular circumstances, when the difference between young people and the older people, what does it mean to have a mature demand that wants you to, have access to, to different, to resources? Then the precedence taken by, the priority is being given to to the parents' view about what is a mature mind. So the time is really moving, and I don't know how much data I'm able to go through. But this whole idea of the fear and the trust away of the young people that if they're given resources, they're going to misuse the resources, they're going to sell land and so forth and so on. It needs to be debunked in a way. This is one of the interview, the story that comes out from the that reminds you, when you give anything to your child, it may be a chicken or goat or cow, he will say whatever you give him and you spend the money responsibly. So it is important that as a parent, you wait until the child develops a mature mind, because if you give him land while he's still very young, we save the rent and use the money for all kinds of things that are not important in life. My sense here, and I don't want to bombard you with this heavy, kind of a slide here, but I used these two cases of the young people in a way, Fred and the jacket, actually to question that, that idea that, if you give these young people resources, they're going to misuse them, and so forth and so on. These two cases here, for these two young men, all of them in the 30s, but coming from different, background and experiencing the different challenges, because in terms of the jacket, he comes from a broken, household, a divorced household. He grew outside of the family, not in the village, where he did not acquire skills for farming and did not get, chance to go to educated and, be able to acquire the capital, as he mentioned in this particular, court. That has been acted as an interest is to be a successful farmer. And when he was given the land during the land distribution, the family land distribution, he lent out a portion of it, not because he was irresponsible and he did not want to farm and so on, simply because, as I explained here, simply because he did not have the capital and the skills that would allow him to produce successful in this particular farm, which was the opposite for Fred, who grew up in this well-organized family, very successful smallholder, family, go to education, get a nice job, accumulate, capital from that job, come out, get support from the parents, and start, become successful farmers. What do you see? The contrast between these two, cases here is the story that really coming out here powerful is that in the case when young people are provided with the support either by the family or the state in the particular case, they are able actually to they are able to establish themselves as as successful smallholder farmers. And then I'm also moving towards the conclusion, because the time is running out. There's also this whole issue around education and the access to to resources, which is very much here. This is a particular parent from a wealthy household. What she said, we want our children to know that the main inheritance from us parents is education. It is not prudent to tell your child while he is still at school that he has 2 acres piece of land home. That will make them to drop out from school, even if I and my husband have a relatively big farm and only have 2 children, and we have accumulated away from our farm activities. I don't want my children to take the same road. Not at all. Farming is not a desirable activity. Even if they've achieved what they've achieved through farming, it is just luck. I mean, in a way, in a way, what you see here, you see it's a situation where parents acknowledge that this particular economic activity is generating benefits, is generating resources they're able to accumulate and so forth, and so on. But they, at the same time, they don't want their children to take the same accumulating route. The question is why? I mean, that is where the whole emphasis on education. As here, people don't get me wrong. I'm not arguing here that education is wrong. But the point that I'm making here, the point that they make about the incompatibility between education and access to resources for young people is a fraud in a way. They shouldn't be exclusive, in nature, but they should be in a way complementary. And if I had the time, I have another case study which shows precisely that about this young person who was given the land when he was at the college, but he was able to combine that kind of education with using successfully the resource that was given to him. And currently is one of the most successful smallholder farmers in this particular context. Now, as I conclude, is then youth land scarcity generational manufacture, where the narrative of mature mind as a basis for intergenerational land acquisition, I argue, in my view, reflect the political nature of the youth land scarcity, and together with the former education narrative by the generational contestation over resources to consolidate the patriarchs grip and the control of agrarian resources. In my view, the generational manufactured land scarcity is the basis for the increasing redundant youth labor in the contemporary African economies and the root cause of the youth reproduction crisis in Africa. This is not a normal agrarian structural transformation as argued in the Marxist, transition, agrarian transition, argument, but rather a direct outcome of the generational manufactured land scarcity induced by interfamily power relations within the Africa's patriarchal customer social system that make the transfer of land to younger generation challenging as they attain the stage in their life where they are ready to farm. In other words, the argument that I'm making here, what you are seeing happening here is not necessarily the Marxist, kind of way just to say, okay, this is kind of a transitional, issues that this particular, kind of population moving out from rural areas to be absorbed in the industry and so forth and so on. Neither, what you are saying is not necessarily the Charnovian, kind of way to say that no, these parents out of goodwill, they are holding these resources for these young people, waiting for the right moment, for them to hand over the resources so they can start, But what I see and what I'm arguing here is a deliberate holding on resources from those who are owning them, the parents, because of the economic benefits and the other things that they are gaining, from this kind of, resources, and therefore precluding the younger generation to be able to access those resources that they can use to produce or to get productively into the production system in agrarian communities. On that point, let me end there. Thank you for your attention.
Okay, no, thank you very much. Can you give him a round of applause? Colleagues, now it is your chance to engage with the presentation. For those who are online, kindly indicate if you would like to pose a question or a comment to Cyriaque, then I'll be able to note you. Is there anyone who would like to ask a question, comment? Anyone? I only see one hand from Andres. Is there anyone else maybe online? Okay. Okay, we do have species there, and then we have variety. So we will begin with Andres, and then species online, and then go to variety.
Yeah,
You can go ahead.
thank you for a very interesting presentation. And I'm sorry for having missed the first few minutes. I was too late in the faculty meeting. So maybe my question comes somewhat from ignorance. I only saw the last few slides. But I think your point about the contribution of generational power relations and patriarchal power relations is really important. But I wonder whether it was possible for you, I mean, in a way, you identified this as a major contributory cause to the reason why young people are getting access to land. But isn't it necessary to understand the nature of those power relations and the nature of those cultural conceptions in more detail? What is it appears to me that what you're looking at is something that is phenomenal to a much deeper and much wider struggle about the meaning and nature of familial relations and the nature of the transition to adulthood in this culture. What's going on here? I think it's really important to understand that in more detail. I'm reminded as you're speaking of a very important and, in my view, quite underrated book about similar politics in South Africa, Jason Hickel's book, Democracy as Death, which is about trying to understand the reasons why a very important section of Zulu society mobilized against the ANC in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And his argument is that far from simply being the stooges of the National Party, those portions of KwaZulu society, the more conservative, older Zulu men, were pushing back against what they saw as a fundamental, what we would now call a neoliberal, but a liberal individualist challenge to the entire cosmology that validated certain kinds of it seems to me
colleagues online, can you still hear us?
I was just typing that the boardroom.
It seems like we have lost them. I don't know. Okay, let me see. Colleagues online, can you still hear us?
Yes,
You
Sanyiso,
you
but-
can. Hello?
but the boardroom account left, so that's when the sound kind of cut off. We can hear you
Okay,
because you're speaking through your mic.
Is it okay now? Okay. Okay, no, Emmanuel is trying to connect here. Maybe because we can hear you, Sipesi, would you maybe like to pose your question to Cyriaque
Okay.
while we are fixing the problem?
Yes, thank you. Mine is a question, but also kind of a comment as well on the landscapes where that I also work in, where similar kind of, issues, I see similar issues in youth. And the use of natural resources in the community. I want to know maybe how is the hoarding of land and resources from the parents, affecting the relationship between the young people and the actual land and the resources? Because is this not creating some sense of, this continuous gatekeeping? And also, how is it possibly affecting the transfer of skills, generational transfer of skills? Where do you find that in your study or as you engage with communities or those young people have over time just become disinterested in even working the land itself because, they haven't for a long time been given complete ownership or, allowed to just operate themselves independently, etc. So that's just my question. But also as a comment, I think it also the issue of, you're sharing about how parents normally have this perspective of let's wait for the son or the daughter to be mature. They're not mature enough, and then we'll give them land. I also think that it depends on, culture and religion, and I hear kind of an echo. Thank you. I also think it depends on culture and religion, as well as how the society, which, the particular society is made up. I'm saying this because, where I am in my conversations with, youth, as well as, elderly men who live and depend on natural resources as their livelihoods. When you ask them how they started doing this, it is, when I was in grade 4, my father gave me a cow and he said, this is my cow and I should take care of it. And in that way, you are learning skills, you are learning how to take care of this resource and this land that you're also given. And, now they are grown men with their own families and, having these resources. And this system is maintained as well, even in young people now. And also that's how the generational transfer of skills is also maintained. The issue of education, and it's also, existing. So
we are losing you, right?
okay, yeah, but those are just my main questions I spoke about. I hope Cyriaque had the main questions in the first one. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, colleagues. Can you try to be short, please? Farah, you are next.
Thank you, Kaiso. Thanks, Cyriaque, for the very interesting presentation. My own sense is that, as you say in your research site, commercialization is pervasive and unrelated. It's hotspot. And so how much of this is a result of the class differences that emanate from commercialization, which is obviously pervasive in a context and also the state interventions that we've seen in the form of land reform, if we're looking at here. How much of that shapes the kind of generational tensions that we see in the research context? And we're saying the explanatory power of your concept of weighting political scarcity. To what extent do those concepts explain the class differences, agrarian differentiation? How do you then explain agrarian differentiation in your research context? It will be that these are epiphenomenal aspects for what we're seeing may tell us about the underlying tendencies that is unfolding as a result of commercialization, but also maybe in terms of problematizing youth, just to have a sense of your how you understand, given the context in which you have conducted research, the whole idea of young people, who's young and who's not young.
Okay.
I mean, are there differences there? Are the young professionals who are young but are not yet married, they've not yet established their own homesteads? They are not yet married. The others who say they're from wealthy families, others are from poor families. So to some extent, I'm seeing class still being a huge factor in shaping some of those things. Although this may not necessarily be reflected in the statistics. Yeah.
No, thank you very much, Farai. Cyriaque, please respond. I'll give you at least 5 minutes to respond so that we have last round. Thank you.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Are we combining Farai's question and the English questions? About what is I guess the point here is what is a different point here. I mean, I'm coming from a particular perspective just to say, in a way that in most of the cases, the analysis of the agrarian transitional agrarian settings is very much dominated by class analysis and the gender analysis. So this is the kind of the social relations that normally are taking precedences in terms of understanding what is going on in the contemporary agrarian communities. But what I'm arguing here, what I'm putting forward here is that yes, class analysis is important. The gender is absolutely important in this kind of understanding, but there is another form of social relations that is also as important as a class and the generation. This is the generation. This is the generational, kind of social relation that we're talking here. And then there is coming to your question. I'm linking up this understanding of the transition for youth to adulthood and why it matters. Probably because I don't have a much more deeper kind of psychological background and this other day. But the where I'm coming from just to say that it is matters simply because that kind of transition is associated with access to resources. And that access to resources is related to accumulation. And that is when I see the significance about this whole transition, because this kind of transition become, extremely, significant here. Now, right, again, to the question that you raised about, young people and the youth and so forth and so on. Yes, I mean, there is a demographic, kind of the definition of youth. There's a social understanding of youth and so forth and so on. But by bringing in the likes of Honwana and others, moving away from the demographic, kind of definition of youth. I know youth is, from 18 to 24 to 20 something, but just to get that kind of, much broader conceptualization of people for young people in a way. So, Spain. The question that you raise, whether the parents working on agrarian resources does not, the extent to which it does affect the intergenerational transfers, being skills, farming skills, and the whole future of farming, which is a very important one. And this particular point is being discussed fully in another chapter of my PhD. Is that in a way, young people, they don't cross the arms because they don't have access to land. They, in a way, they act in different ways. Sometimes they migrated in urban centers, and others are getting involved in farm, activities. And what they wanted to kind of accumulate some of the income and the capital that they can use to come back and and they rent in land that they can use to to start their commercial farm. But they don't give up and they say no, we therefore this is the end of it. We don't want to involve in it. They have got their own way, or they tried their own way to see if they secure capital space where that they can allow them to come back and invest in farming in their own rights.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Cyriaque. We will go for the last round. I see that online we've got Pilan. Do we have anyone else, either online or here in-house? Do we have anyone online other than Pilan? Pilan, you can unmute and go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations to Cyriaque. Just two minor questions. The first one is that what is the prevailing tenure system in the area of study? Because that can help us to understand what you mean by youth owning land or having land access. If it's kind of private, individualized tenure system on paper, is it what is unveiling in the day-to-day social land relations, or there are certain contestations because probably land, after all, might not be belonging to any individual, whether young or old, but it's a family asset. So if that is the case, either on paper or in practice, how then do you locate your key concept? Then the second easy question is that it seems to me that your conclusion kind of deviate from the agrarian political economy explanations of structure and so forth. Even just the explanation you're given now, it's more about agents. But if I look at your analytic framework, where you're starting from, it seems to be very much embedded in the kind of the Marxist literature. How are you balancing that kind of contradiction, if there's any, and do you have any key anthropological literature that you are using to explain that fascinating empirical data, which seems not easily explained by Marx and his followers? Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much, Pilani. Maybe before I hand over to Cyriaque to respond, Cyriaque, maybe I can also pose my question as the chair. So, Cyriaque, in your argument, you argue that the youth land scarcity is generationally manufactured, of which you argue it's the elders who are behind this scarcity. So, what I would like to know is, firstly, is there a validity in the statement by one of the participants there who says they don't give the land to the youth because they fear that they might misuse the land, they might sell the land? Has it happened before? Did you try maybe to find out if that has happened? And also, is there a demand for land by the youth? And how did you maybe try to maybe investigate if there is that demand, or maybe the reason why they have less access to land is also to the fact that they are also accessing other opportunities elsewhere that are not necessarily linked to land. And last question on the issue of the youth. You argue that the youth are those who are circumcised. And according to my little knowledge, circumcision is only for men. I know that for women there are also some cultural practices. But in your case study, what did you observe? How does it happen for women? Is there like a cultural process which is circumcision, which then allows them also to be able to qualify as youth, who then you argue that's there for to access land. And the very last question is, why should the elders leave land and give it to the youth? Why?
Yeah.
Okay, no, thank you very much, Cyriaque. You can respond and then, yeah, I think then you will see after that. Thank you very much.
Sure. I will start over my pitch again. Yeah, this is very interesting and broad questions. Yeah, Piran, yeah, thank you. I mean, that's the reason why I started with the context in which this particular study has been taken. Because this is a land reform context in which land was given to select to select the beneficiaries, and each household head or male or husband, was given the title deeds. Of course, the wrong process was messy. It's a long story about how this happened and so on. So, but it's a privately individual, on the land. But you're right. I mean, at the beginning, I mean, the first beneficiaries may have that kind of paper, the title deeds. But in terms of the subsequent generation and the whole titling, it's very complex. I mean, when I discussed with them, they mentioned that once the land is divided among the children, and then they go to the land deeds office to register that comes of division and so forth and so on. But to be honest, I didn't follow through to see whether that is the case. But the understanding of land ownership there is individual kind of ownership, which is practiced there. In terms of whether this is a shift, the conclusion is a shift away from the broader Marxist theoretical framing. Yes or no? Not in a way, and in fact, I didn't put that slide there. In a way, the concept framework is what I see as much more in the kind of intersectionality here at play, where you have both gender, class, and the generational social relations. All of them play a key important role in determining who gets access, who does not access, and therefore who does what and who gets involved in this commercial farming. It's a kind of intersectional, intersectional way. That is how I see this combination being, played up. It's not to say that it's additive. It's a yeah. Let me just use that word intersectional, for the sake of, for argument's sake. Now, the idea of whether there is a demand for land, yes, that is a simple one. There is a huge appetite for young people for land. It's a very lucrative, area where agricultural production is very, very lucrative. So yes, there is appetite for for land, and the whole issue around the women and how women understand the right time for them to access to land. I've got a whole section on that. But it's a quite complex. I mean, the whole idea there, young men go through circumcision. That is how they understand that they have matured, there's enough, and so forth. At least from their own understanding. But the young woman is rather about getting married. So once they get married, they will be having access. But even that is very complex, because that is where actually they start from the fact that there's no guarantee that the woman will have access in the family that she's married to. And if she doesn't have land from her family, and she does not have land in the family where she gets married, when she gets divorced or the marriage collapses and so forth and so on, it becomes even more precarious situation in which they found themselves. Why should elders give land to young people? Yeah, good question. And my maybe before I got to that question, let me just I remember the one point that Grant mentioned about the anthropological literature that may be used to analyze the data. Grant, if you can provide me with those key literature, that would be very much thankful. But why young people should be given a land? Well, because they deserve to have that. Is that kind of there's that kind of understanding that a young person, when he reaches a particular stage, is there's that kind of sense of entitlement for young people to get resources from the parents. Therefore, the parents should be able to provide resources to the children. They see it as entitlement. They see that, they use the word, what due to us. And the parents don't deny that they should indeed, give, and that is the cultural. From whatever, a young person, when he reaches a particular stage, either from he was able to access land either from the clan or the headman or the king or or the head, or the household, the patriarch. So it is that the kind of cultural entitlement which is there, that young people, when they reach a particular point at a particular stage in their life, should be able to be given the resources. But the question, the contestation here is, when is the right time to give to help us? Then the contestation between the older generation, the young generation here, they differ at a particular, and my sense here that I'm arguing here is that who define the right moment? The defining of the right moment for young people to access the land is socially constructed. That is the argument that I'm putting going forward here.
Okay. No, thank you very much, Cyriaque. Can we once more give him a round of applause? Colleagues, please allow me to invite you on our next academic webinar, which will be on 28 November 2023 by Professor Bram Busher on conservation. And there he will be giving a critical reflection on neo-protectionism in relation to the global biodiversity framework. You can also be on the lookout on our social network accounts, and then you will see our next academic webinar. Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, we are done. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Great presentation, Cyriaque. Bye.
Thank you.